There is a moment that almost no one talks about. A moment that does to you look dramatic from the outside, no shouting, no revenge, no collapse, but psychologically, it is an earthquake. This moment deeply unsettles narcissistic personalities, not because it makes the empath cruel, but because it makes them unreachable. Narcissists cannot survive what they cannot reach. This moment occurs when the empath is no longer wounded, but done. Not bitter, not hardened, not vengeful, just finished. This stage has been described as an alchemical turning point, a psychic reaction where poison is not expelled, but absorbed, digested, and transformed into something entirely new. Once it happens, the empath does not become dangerous in the way the world expects. They become unbreakable. Most people misunderstand empaths, thinking that empathy is weakness, sensitivity means fragility, or kindness equates to naivety. But authentic empathy is different. It is rooted in lived experience rather than image. Narcissists, by contrast, do not live from being. They live from persona, masks, reflections, borrowed energy, and external validation. Where the empath feels deeply, the narcissist performs deeply. This difference changes everything once the empath reaches their breaking point. A narcissist feeds on reaction, admiration, fear, confusion, and emotional chaos, a form of unconscious psychological vampirism. They do not drain others because they enjoy cruelty, they drain because they are empty. The empath, meanwhile, has always been full but leaking energy, forgiveness, understanding, and chances until one day they stop. That is when the balance of power reverses. The most dangerous psychological transformation is not rage, it is integration. When the empath integrates what they were taught to suppress, anger, boundaries, discernment, self-authority, they do not swing into cruelty, they swing into clarity. Excessive empathy eventually becomes sovereignty. Endless giving transforms into self-possession. Silence transforms into presence. Presence is terrifying to those who rely on manipulation. The empath does not fight back, they withdraw psychic access. No more explaining, no more defending, no more proving reality, just an internal shift. Manipulation has nowhere to land. This moment marks the beginning of individuation, the process of becoming whole, not good, moral, or socially acceptable, but whole. Wholeness does not negotiate with dysfunction. A fed-up empath is calm, not loud. They do not expose the narcissist or seek justice. They simply stop participating in the illusion, which is the narcissist's oxygen. The empath has lived too much for others. The narcissist has lived too little within themselves. When the empath stops offering their inner world as shelter, the narcissist is forced to confront their own emptiness, and that confrontation is unbearable. This is the alchemical moment when suffering becomes insight, pain becomes structure, and empathy becomes power. From this point, the empath rises through distinct psychological stages, from unconscious empathy to wounded awareness, to what has been called the sovereign psyche. The first stage is the unconscious empath. Here, empathy begins, but understanding is minimal. The empath absorbs moods, internalizes blame, and feels responsible for others. Pain. They mistake emotional intensity for intimacy, trauma bonding for love, and self-sacrifice for virtue. Boundaries are absent because they feel cruel. They believe that loving harder, explaining better, or forgiving deeper will change others. At this stage, narcissists instinctively recognize the empath as openness and are drawn to it, feeding off their energy. The second stage is the wounded awakening empath. This is painful. The empath realizes they have been giving life to something that feeds on them. This is the encounter with their own shadow, anger, boundaries, and instincts that were suppressed or doubted. They oscillate between compassion and rage, guilt and clarity, leaving and staying. Narcissists escalate at this stage, subtle gaslighting, playing victim, alternating cruelty and affection. Awareness weakens the narcissist's spell, but seeing the poison is not the same as neutralizing it. The third stage is the sovereign empath. This empath does not lose empathy but masters it. They observe without merging emotionally, speak clearly without over-explaining, and no longer seek to be understood, they understand themselves. Anger becomes discernment, sensitivity becomes perception, and compassion becomes choice. They do not react emotionally. No supply is given. Presence replaces defense and collapse. Individuation culminates in inner authority, where the empath is anchored and immune to manipulation. The narcissist senses this shift instantly, even without words. The transformation continues through a four-stage movement of internal reorganization, sometimes called the RISE method. It begins with recognition. The empath stops romanticizing suffering and sees patterns instead of isolated incidents. Projection dissolves when responsibility returns to the self. Exhaustion becomes information. Loyalty and empathy are re-evaluated as tools rather than virtue. Integration follows, incorporating disowned traits, anger, refusal, and the capacity to walk away without explanation. With integration, the empath becomes less reactive, but more present. They carry their shadow consciously, and this conscious shadow is protective. Separation is next not physical, but psychic withdrawal. The empath stops explaining, arguing, or chasing accountability. Energy returns to its source. The narcissist experiences irrelevance, not rejection. The empath moves into complete embodiment, existing differently, trusting internal authority. Manipulation no longer registers. Psychological vampirism collapses without reaction, whereas conscious empathy thrives without external permission. The sovereign empath feels deeply without giving access, loves without disappearing, and sees pain without absorbing it. The final stage is the empathic warrior. This individual balances empathy with strength, battling inner fragmentation rather than others. They do not expose narcissists. Narcissists expose themselves through irrelevance. The empathic warrior does not need to dominate, win arguments, or be believed. Reality is internally confirmed. Narcissists abandon awakened empaths, not defeated but empty of supply. The mask, the persona, is no longer necessary. The empathic warrior sees without being seen, calm, clear, and unreactive. The fed-up empath is truly dangerous not in behavior, but to dysfunction, unconsciousness, and cycles of abuse. They stop rescuing, explaining abuse, or spiritualizing suffering. They leave systems that demand self-erasure, causing these systems to collapse. Acceptance of oneself, including anger, limits, and refusal to be consumed, brings quiet authority. Empathy is meant for perception, not endless giving. Sensitivity was training to see beneath masks, recognize subtle shifts, and identify when something is no longer alive. Completion of this training leads the empath back to truth, not innocence. Truth does not shout, convince, or chase, it simply stands. Recognition is the first step toward freedom. Empaths are naturally sensitive individuals who feel deeply, absorb the emotions of others, and often prioritize the needs of people around them over their own. They are caring, compassionate, and highly intuitive. Their lives often revolve around understanding and helping others, sometimes at great personal cost. Narcissists, in contrast, are self-centered, manipulative, and emotionally exploitative. They take what they want without concern for others' feelings, thriving on control, attention, and power. At first glance, it seems that narcissists would always hold the upper hand in interactions with empaths. The empath appears vulnerable, while the narcissist seems in command. However, when an empath reaches a breaking point, when they become fed up, self-aware, and fully aligned with their boundaries, they transform into a force far more formidable than any narcissist. This transformation occurs because a fed-up empath has accumulated not only the emotional intelligence of years spent feeling and understanding others, but also the knowledge of manipulation, deception, and control strategies used against them. While narcissists rely on emotional hooks, guilt, fear, and subtle coercion to dominate relationships, a fed-up empath has learned to detect these tactics instantly. No longer do they absorb negative emotions blindly, or allow manipulation to dictate their actions. Their awareness and strength create a shield around them that is impenetrable to typical narcissistic strategies. One of the key reasons a fed-up empath is more dangerous than a narcissist is that they are unpredictable. Narcissists thrive on predictability. They study patterns, identify emotional weaknesses, and exploit the ways people react. When dealing with an empath who has been pushed to the point of asserting themselves, the narcissist encounters someone who refuses to react in expected ways. This unpredictability disarms the narcissist. Their usual tactics, guilt-tripping, gaslighting, love-bombing, silent treatment, no longer produce the intended results. In some cases, narcissists may even experience fear, confusion, or anger, because the very emotional leverage they depended on has evaporated. Another reason lies in the empath. This accumulation of emotional knowledge. Through years of absorbing feelings, sometimes too deeply, empaths develop a profound understanding of human behavior. A fed-up empath can recognize patterns of manipulation, detect lies instantly, and anticipate the narcissist's moves. Unlike the narcissist, who is often reactive and defensive when challenged, the empath can remain grounded, calm, and strategic. They can respond with precision, choosing when to engage, when to walk away, and when to set firm boundaries that cannot be breached. This combination of insight and composure makes the fed-up empath incredibly potent. Boundaries are central to the power shift between a narcissist and a fed-up empath. Narcissists rely on porous boundaries. They exploit the willingness of empaths to compromise themselves for the sake of others. They depend on the empath, as desire for harmony, love, and acceptance to maintain control. Once an empath becomes fed up, these boundaries are no longer negotiable. They enforce rules with clarity and consistency, leaving the narcissist unable to manipulate or guilt them. A fed-up empath does not engage in endless explanations, does not justify their choices excessively, and does not tolerate disrespect. This firmness can be profoundly destabilizing for narcissists who have spent a lifetime evading accountability. Empaths also have a unique emotional advantage. Narcissists often try to provoke reactions to feel powerful, to remind others of their superiority. They thrive on eliciting fear, guilt, or anxiety. Fed-up empaths, however, have learned the art of emotional detachment. They no longer allow themselves to be pulled into reactive states. Instead, they respond from a place of calm, observation, and assertiveness. This refusal to engage on the narcissist strips the narcissist of their perceived power. Without emotional leverage, the narcissist feels diminished, irrelevant, and frustrated, which is a rare experience for someone accustomed to controlling others effortlessly. The danger of a fed-up empath is also psychological. Narcissists are often unprepared to face individuals who combine empathy with self-respect, knowledge, and assertiveness. The fed-up empath sees through the narcissist's facade, identifies the underlying insecurities, and refuses to participate in the drama. This ability can expose the narcissist publicly or privately, undermining their reputation, influence, or control. While narcissists often operate from a place of pretense and illusion, the fed-up empath operates from clarity and truth. This difference in authenticity can be devastating for narcissists who rely on deception to maintain dominance. Furthermore, fed-up empaths carry a quiet but potent energy that attracts respect and accountability. People, including other empaths and even previously intimidated individuals, notice when an empath stops being passive and starts standing firm. Narcissists, who often rely on social validation and admiration, find their usual social leverage ineffective. The fed-up empath's authenticity and integrity create ripples in social and relational dynamics, leaving the narcissist isolated or powerless. It is important to note that being a fed-up empath does not mean abandoning compassion or becoming aggressive. True strength in this context is measured by emotional intelligence, self-respect, and the ability to disengage strategically. Aggression or vengefulness is often what makes narcissists dangerous, but a fed-up empath is dangerous precisely because they are measured, deliberate, and immune to manipulation. They may choose to walk away, set unbreakable boundaries, or confront dishonesty calmly, each choice stripping the narcissist of control and forcing accountability. A fed-up empath also understands the long-term consequences of interactions. While narcissists operate in the short term, seeking immediate gratification, control, or attention, empaths consider emotional, psychological, and relational impacts. This perspective allows the empath to plan, predict outcomes, and act in ways that have lasting effects on the narcissist's attempts to manipulate. This foresight, combined with emotional resilience, creates a dynamic where the narcissist is perpetually outmaneuvered. Another critical aspect is the emotional immunity a fed-up empath develops over time. While unhealed empaths may absorb negativity and feel depleted, the fed-up empath has learned to protect their energy. They no longer internalize criticism, lies, or manipulations. Their emotional boundaries function like armor, making them impervious to the tactics that would have previously weakened them. For narcissists who rely on emotional exploitation, encountering someone immune to their tactics is both threatening and destabilizing. Moreover, fed-up empaths often become agents of truth and exposure. They have an intuitive understanding of hidden agendas, lies, and manipulative behaviors. They can confront deception without fear and do so in ways that are socially and emotionally disarming. Narcissists are rarely prepared for this level of insight. The empath's ability to expose dishonesty or manipulation threatens the narcissist's image, confidence, and sense of control, which is why they often perceive fed-up empaths as dangerous. The danger also extends to emotional accountability. Narcissists often evade responsibility, deflect blame, and avoid facing the consequences of their actions. A fed-up empath refuses complicity in these dynamics. They insist on truth, enforce boundaries, and expect accountability. For narcissists, this refusal to tolerate their behavior challenges the very foundations of their manipulative strategies. The empath's insistence on integrity leaves the narcissist with no easy path to exploit or manipulate. In some cases, a fed-up empath's danger lies in their ability to end cycles of abuse decisively. Where previously empaths might have stayed in toxic relationships due to guilt, fear, or hope for change, A fed-up empath recognizes when enough is enough. They can disengage emotionally, legally, or socially in ways that the narcissist cannot control. This finality can feel devastating to narcissists, who are used to prolonging control indefinitely. It is essential to recognize that this danger does not stem from malice or vengeance, but from empowerment. The fed-up empath is dangerous because they have mastered self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and strategic disengagement. They are capable of neutralizing manipulation, enforcing boundaries, and maintaining autonomy in a way that narcissists rarely encounter. Their power is quiet, rooted in clarity and emotional strength, rather